Good evening and most welcome to H815, and we are going to take a look at The Taint of the Mirror by Rudolf Gachet. And I might say this is one of the most interesting interpretations of the works of Derrida I ever read. It actually beats even Spivak Gayatri, I would think. And he really managed to point to the most important thing. And that is already found in the title, The Taint of the Mirror. And that is reflection. In the opening chapter you can read defining reflection, and that's a good thorough, meaty going into what is reflection and why have we been so obsessed about reflection in Western ideology and history of thought. He writes as following. This is a cite from the beginning of the first chapter. Reflection is undoubtedly as old as the discourse of philosophy itself. A statement such as this, however, borders on the trivial, if one defines reflection in its most common sense, as meditation or careful consideration of some subject by turning or fixing one's thought on it. Without such action, no philosophical discourse could get off the ground. I am concerned here instead with the philosophical concept of reflection, which from the outset has turned away from the immediacy and contingency of the reflective gesture, by which philosophers and their philosophizing begins in order to reflect on the beginning of philosophy itself. We are talking here about the actual starting point. Somewhere maybe in Ionia or Attica, where people after the Iliad and the Odyssey start to pondering these things and really looking into them. And according to Rudolf Gachet, here we have the turn of the mirror. We want something to be reflecting. It became one ideal, an ideal for how it should be. Thought should be exactly in correspondence to something else. Think of a mirror and your reflection of it. I think you need a correspondence. You want to know what you see in the mirror is an actual correspondence to what you are or what you have. Let me give you an example here. Go into H&M, the clothing store, and try out a sweater or a shirt of some sort. Once you look in the mirror, you want it to be accurate. And this is this accuracy that is so difficult. What is that? And for myself, I always thought that what I saw in the mirror was correct. It took some years until I started to paint. I realized it's dependent on the light. And the lighting does do a great difference. Actually, you can't even see the color of the shirt. And it also affects the shape, the texture, and everything else. You need to get out in daylight. Since then, it has started a trend to have daylight illumination, lightning inside, proving both when you're at H&M or some other clothing store. So it makes a huge difference. There is a need for what one could call accuracy. And the Greek, they got focused on the accuracy, and it became a problem for them. And as something I mentioned before, they went in one direction, later we went in something completely different. The conclusion of the Greek were mostly, except for Heraclitus, that the reflection was not correct, and the correct reflection was somewhere else. Whereas today we think that the reflection has to be incorrect, and there is something we cannot see that is the correct, and that's material reductivism. What neither of these directions are thinking of is it a good model to think of reflection? Is it a good idea to think of accuracy in the sense of being in the exact opposite? And is that even something that is thinkingly possible? Can you think complete reflection? And to cut the whole thing very short, I would say that is something Rudolf Gachet opposes. He doesn't oppose it, rather he shows that that is not really possible. You cannot have a reflection that is correct. And not so much because the mirror is tainted or anything like that. It doesn't have the meaning you think it has. It doesn't have any real meaning to it. What does reflection mean? It means something in some cases, but this obfuscated, too general conception of reflection as being just good, like you go to the gas station and they have this fuel and it's called 97 plus HBO and I don't know what else, and you get a free set of coffee and buns. That's the best coffee they ever have. That is supposed to be the real McCoy for gasoline. It's exactly the same thing with reflection. We think it's very good, but we don't really know what it is. We don't know what it contains. And what Rudolf Gachet shows is that in the project, in the deconstruction of Jacques Derrida, is to find out whether this is something fantastic or it is something more of a confusion, some overgeneralization that does not have any proper good grounding or workings within yourself. This is not a general statement. It has to do with how you perceive the world. And we are all accustomed or inclined to think of reflection. I would say this is the same as the Wittgenstein caught by picture, hypnotized by picture. In this case, it's the same thing. We get too extravagantly caught up in the idea of a perfect reflection. And it's not the perfection that's the problem. The problem is the idea of something bouncing at something else, and that outcome is the best thing you can have. Yeah, that is exactly what it is. You look into the mirror, you get a reflection, it takes time, and what you get is the best thing you can have. You only need to polish that thing a bit. It's not 100%, but it's the best thing you can have. Just polish it. If you polish it, you get a world of ideas, or if you take away some stuff and adjust it, you get reductive materialism. But the thing is it a good model? That's a whole nother, completely different project. And that is starting the question, is reflection a good working principle for doing things with knowledge or understanding or thinking? Rudolf Gachet shows that in a way this is what Derrida is questioning. It's a difficult task because it doesn't lend itself to easy definition. Yes, we start with a mirror, and obviously in some sense all sorts of knowledge is the sort of mirroring. But we're looking for a particular sort of mirroring, and a sort of mirroring that has captured us, it has kidnapped our thinking system, and it has led to a fixation with something that we ourselves construct as a subject. This is a subjective construct that is sort of diminishing our possibility for thinking and perceiving. Yeah, that's, to cut it short, I would say that. It's an excellent book. Needless to say, it's very hard. It's Derrida. Don't trick yourself and think it's an easy read. You can't bring it down to the Islas Canarias and read it with a nice soft drink. No, you cannot. You need to put your mind to it. You need to go away somewhere else where you're not in your common ruts to understand it. Because every time you are in your common ruts with your body, that leaves no understanding for this. You need to change the environment and you need to act differently. Because here the body is involved. We're talking abstract thinking. And abstract thinking, as Lakoff Johnson said, is always involving the body. If you want it higher up, involve the body. If you want it lower down, if you want to have these things that I just need to satisfy that desire, then you are into the mind area. But if you want to have pure abstractions, categorizations, you're into the body realm, the area of the body, the district of the body, the district of the incorporated self. That is where you live, and that is the place where you can actually do things that are higher up. So it's the most interesting book, and I think there is no doubt I'm going to get back to this book, but I can highly recommend it from every different aspects. Every approach will be this book. Cheers.